Today we're talking about basic ecological concepts. That is those concepts that deals with our ecology. So I'll commence with definition of ecology. Now, ecology is a word that is coined from two Greek words, ecos and logos. Oikos means environment, while logos means study. So oikos and logos coming together gives the word ecology, which refers to the study of our environment. Now, to define ecology is defined as the study of plants and animals in relation to the environment. And when we say plants and animals, it revolves around everything, every living thing. It revolves around every living thing. So in a simple word, we can just say ecology is the study of how all living things relate to the environment. That's the definition of ecology. Now, what are the branches of ecology? We have two main branches of ecology, which are horticology and synecology. Now, for horticology, this refers to the study of organisms of single species and its environment. It refers to the of just one species and its environment. For example, let's say the study of a bird, the study of a bird in its nest. So in such case, you are studying only that bird in that environment, right? The environment will be the nest of the bird, and the organism be studied there will be the bird. So that is horticology. Let's say I want to study the organism in in a fish pond. Now, synecology refers to the study of all the organisms in the fish pond. For example, let's say you're studying organism in a fish pond. So this is plankton. So we study different organisms. So this falls under ecology. I will understand this. To study the organism in school, for example. Now, if I study organism in a school, we study all the students in the school, all the microorganisms in the school, the grasses in the school. So all of this falls under synecology. But horticulture in the other one, in the other part, deals with just studying a single species. Let's say, for example, one study a single specific kind of species in a pond. It still falls under horticology. So let's get this straight. Horticology deals with the study of a single organism or species in an environment, while synecology deals with the study of different organisms or species in an environment. So in a nutshell, synecology is more complex than horticology. So that is that about the branches of ecology. Now, what are ecological concepts? Ecological concepts deals with the various concepts that are associated with ecology. That is, those terms that are needed while studying the environment. Now, we talk about environment. It's the first aspect of the environment, because when we talk of ecology, like, for example, I was talking to one of my students recently, and I told them, what is ecology in one word? They were just saying different things. I have to make them understand that ecology in one word means environment. When you hear the word ecology, you are talking about environment. What how organism relates to environment. Now, what is environment itself? Now, environment refers to those factors that affect living or non-living thing in 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 an association. Example, let's say the external and internal factors that affect both living and non-living things refers to environment. So those factors that affect living thing and non-living thing refers to environment. For example, let's say plants, for example. What are those factors that affect plants? Now, one thing that will come to your mind is water. Water is a factor that affects plants. Sunlight is a factor that affects plants. If you ask yourself now, what are those factors that affect you yourself? The external factors are food, shelter, light, temperature. These are external factors that affect me and you in our environment. And what are they in our environment? Let's say, we say, for example, internal factors that affect our environment. We say our system, our digestive system, how it functions, uh, our reproductive system, how it functions, blood in our body, water in our body. These are internal factors affecting us. So environment in a nutshell refers to all factors that affect living or non-living things. That's environment. Now, the other concept we're talking about is biosphere. Biosphere, as the word implies, bio. When you hear the word bio, let something come to your mind, which is life. Bio means life. While sphere means Earth. They represent Earth. So when we say biosphere, that refers to life on Earth. Life on Earth. Now, a biosphere refers to the zone of Earth occupied by living organisms, or let's say the part of Earth occupied by living organisms. So, biosphere can also be referred to as ecosphere. There are different types of biosphere. We have the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, and the lithosphere. Now, let's take it one by one. Atmosphere. Now, atmos represents air. The sphere there represents Earth. So, in a simple way, that refers to air on Earth. So, atmosphere is the gaseous portion of Earth. And when we talk about the gaseous portion of Earth, we talk about the part of Earth that's comprised of air. Example of such, we say, and this comprises of gases, most especially, like we have nitrogen, which occupies 78% of the atmosphere. Oxygen occupies 21% of the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide, which occupies 0.03% of the atmosphere. And we have the noble gases, which occupies 0.07% of the atmosphere. Now, these are the major constituents or components of the atmosphere. Now, that is one part of biosphere. Now, let's talk about hydrosphere. Hydro. Hydro that refers to water. Now, the sphere that I said before refers to Earth. So, hydrosphere, simple way, means water and earth in Earth. Hydrosphere covers up to, like it is said that our Earth has up to 70% of Earth contains water. 70% of Earth. Though you mean yourself that what you are familiar to see, what you see most is land. You see land, you see houses. You may be thinking that well, that's what occupies Earth. No, 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 no. Earth is made up of 70% of water. That is only 30%. That's where we have land and the rest, mountains and the rest. So the hydrosphere includes the ocean, pool, rivers, anything that contains water falls under hydrosphere on Earth. Now, lithosphere. So lithos means rock or let's say sand. Now, lithosphere comprised of the solid portion of the Earth. That is that part of Earth that contains solid portion. And the solid portion we're actually talking about here is sand, substance like sand, like rocks, like like the Himalayas. All of these are rocks. So these are the solid portion of the atmosphere of the Earth. It's the Earth surface, and it's the basis of human settlement. So that about the biosphere. Now let's move to another concept, which is habitats. Now habitats where an organism is naturally found or dwells. Where an organism, we say habitat is the natural dwelling place of an organism. The natural dwelling place of an organism refers to habitat. Where an organism dwells, where an organism lives. This is what is referred as habitat. Now, habitat occurs in three different parts. We have the aquatic habitat, terrestrial habitat, and the arboreal habitat. Now, aquatic habitat refers to plants and animal which lives in water. So any organism that lives in water are referred to as aquatic organisms because their habitat is aquatic. So they are referred to aquatic organisms. While terrestrial habitat refers to organisms that live on land, forest, grassland, there's lives on land are refers to terrestrial habitat. For example, lion. You can't expect lion to live in water. No. You can't expect monkey. You can't expect zebra. You can't expect so etc. All these organisms they live on land. That's the difference there. Now for aquatic organisms, example of aquatic organism, we have the shark, the whales, the dolphins, the planktons, the phytoplanktons, and etc. These are organisms that live in water. Now, what about arboreal habitats? Now, these are organisms that lives on tree trunks, and stuff like that. And organisms that are usually found in these habitats, and I mean arboreal habitats, are the monkeys, the apes, the chimpanzee, the birds, and some snakes also. So that's that about habitats. Now, ecological niche. Now, we have to understand the difference between habitat and ecological niche. Let me recap meaning of habitat again. Habitat refers to organism that dwells, the natural dwelling place of an organism is habitat. While ecological niche refers to the specific portion of an habitat which is occupied by a particular species. This specific portion of an habitat which is occupied by a particular species. That is, that specific portion an habitat lives or dwells is referred to as ecological niche. That's why the niche is there. So let's see it this way. For example, a termite. A termite is a terrestrial organism. That is, It's an organism that lives on land. Termites don't live in water. Now, if I were to ask, what is the ecological niche of a termite? The ecological niche of a termite is not terrestrial. It is the habitat of a termite that is terrestrial. The ecological niche of a termite is a termitarium. If you're familiar with the termitarium, you will see what I'm saying. As they usually have this house like this, they build by themselves, where we have different termites. You know, termites is a social animal. We have the worker, we have the king, they have the queen, all of them like that in that place, in that termitarium. They usually build it by themselves. That is the ecological niche. Now, let me use bird for example, because I believe by using bird, you understand better. Now, a bird, if you have to ask, what is the habitat of a bird? In a simple way, just say arboreal. You can't classify bird as a terrestrial organism. You can't classify bird as an aquatic organism. So the only place you can classify bird is you can classify a bird as an arboreal habitat, an arboreal organism. That's an organism that lives in trees. Now, that is the habitat of a bird. Now, what is the ecological niche of a bird? The ecological niche of a bird is the nest. Hope I'm communicating here. The ecological niche of a bird is the nest. That nest where the bird stays is the ecological niche of the bird. Why? The habitat of the bird is the arboreal. That's the difference. So I'm citing these examples just to understand the difference between ecological niche and habitats. Now, population. Population. Population refers to the total number of organisms of the same species living in a habitat. We can decide to calculate the number of the total number of rats in your house or in my house, or a total number of cockroach in our house, or a total number of cactus plants in a specific area. So this refers to population. And just recently, census will be done. So census is also a part of a way of calculating the number of population of human beings. So this is population, and it is really done in the way of calculating the number of population. The population has to be of same species. You can't just say you want to do population for bird, for fish, for zebra, all like that. No, that's population usually encompass for the similar species. Now let's move to community. There's a difference between population and community. A population refers to total number of organisms of the same species, while community refers to all organisms living together and existing together in a habitat. That's community. For example, we have community of insects, community of pets, community of wolf, community of dogs, community, so different like that. So we can have different community in a place. For example, let's say a school. A school can be referred as a community, because in such we have cockroach, we have students, we have grass. So they have different species. Now, ecosystem. Ecosystem refers to the basic functional unit in nature. The basic functional unit in nature. So in a nutshell, if we are to define ecosystem, we say ecosystem refers to all living organisms, all living factors interacting with non-living factors in an environment. So it is the interaction between living thing and non-living thing. The difference here is that ecosystem is the interaction between living thing and non-living thing. how we living things interact with non-living things. For example, let's say now living things can't do without non-living things. Now we breathe in oxygen. Oxygen is a non-living thing. Now this is ecosystem. So that is what ecosystem is refers to. Now biomes. Now biomes is a large natural terrestrial ecosystem. So when we talk of a larger natural ecosystem, it refers to biomes, or we can define it as a larger natural ecosystem dominated by specific vegetation. Dominated by specific vegetation. So that is biomes. Now that is, these are the concepts of biology. These are the concepts. These are the ecological concepts based on biology. Now let's talk about the components of ecosystem. I said before that ecosystem refers to the interaction between living and non-living things. And if I were to look at it this way, the living components are the abiotic components, while the non-living components are the biotic components. Yes. Ecosystem refers to living and non-living things interacting together. That's why ecology is categorized into two: the abiotic components and the biotic components. Now, the abiotic components, these are non-living components of the environment. Example of such, we have the carbohydrates, the proteins, and this is also further categorized into inorganic and organic. The organic are the carbohydrates, the lipids, the proteins, etc. While the inorganic, we can have the CO2, H2O. We also have the climatic factors: light, temperature, rainfall. The dynamic factors are the soil types, texture, and topography. So everything that falls under non-living thing, everything that falls under non-living thing are abiotic components. Now, biotic components. You can see this image here. The image here describe biotic and abiotic. Now, the biotic components are those living things in an ecosystem. Those living things in an ecosystem refers to the biotic components of an ecosystem. So when we talk of the biotic components, we're talking about the producers, the consumers, and the decomposers. Now, the producer are the autotrophs. They are the organisms that are able to manufacture their own food by themselves. Organisms that are able to produce their own food. Now, these are mainly green plants. There are also non-green plants that do so. We have green plants that manufacture their food. We also have non-green plants that manufacture their food. Example of non-green plants are just this. You have the Azobacter, the Nitrosomonas. These are examples of non-green plants that manufacture their own food. Now, the other parts of biotic components are the consumers. These are mainly heterotrophs. So which are organisms that feed directly or indirectly on, that depend directly or indirectly on autotrophs for food. These are heterotrophs. Example of heterotrophs, you have the bacteria, we have goats, we have dogs, we have sheep. All of this falls under consumers. Now, the last part for the biotic components are the decomposers. Now, when we say decomposers, we're talking about the saprophytes. They are organisms that feed on dead, decaying matter or remains of plants and animals. By so doing, they release nutrients to the soil. Now, organisms like that, like this, that feed on dead decaying matter, we have the fungi and some bacteria. So this, they feed on dead decaying matter. Now, what are the interactions among the components of the ecosystem? How does the biotic component interact with abiotic components? Though I've said this before. Now, the biotic components, example, are the animals. The animals like dog or rat or rabbit. These animals, they feed on plants. They need plants to survive. Without plants, they cannot survive. Now, the plant now need abiotic factors to survive. The plant needs factors like the sunlight, you need sunlight, you need water, you need carbon dioxide, they need water to survive. Now, in this way, there's an interaction. The plants, they need abiotic factors to survive, while the biotic factors also need abiotic factors to survive. For example, now, let's say dog, for example, a dog needs oxygen to survive. The oxygen is the abiotic factor, while the dog gets biotic factor. So in this way, we have an interaction between biotic factors and abiotic factors. So these are the ways by which they interact with one another. So with this, I believe we're coming to an end of today's class. Is there any question from anyone? Any question from anyone?
Sorry. Problem with the one there.
Hello? Since there's no more feedback and there's no interaction. Can I get feedback or comment or question from anyone? Okay. Then we'll come to an end of today's class.